and LinkedIn. All right, let's see. Hey, everybody, looks like we're starting to get some attendees in the room for our webinar today on CCaaS, Call Center as a Service, with our expert, Tom Luther from Acliviti. I will be starting up in a couple seconds. Looks like we are just double checking to make sure that we are live on LinkedIn and all the other feeds. Tina, as usual, is in the background of our broadcast today. And looks like everything's good. We've got a bunch of people logging in on LinkedIn Live. We got a bunch of people coming into the room. So everything's starting to breathe. Let's do some quick housekeeping for this event. Super excited about this. Did an amazing walkthrough yesterday with Tom. Probably the most knowledgeable person I've ever met when it comes to call center operations, and is actually somebody who's done this before. And he's not just a talking head. This guy's actually been in the weeds. So I'm super excited for him to talk to you a little bit about his experience. I'm also really excited to chop it up and get some questions on your side, both on LinkedIn and in here in the audience. So some real quick housekeeping. As you all know, this is a Zoom room. For the folks that are in the Zoom room, we're also live streaming out on the LinkedIn. For the folks that are in the Zoom room, please use your Q&A down at the bottom of the screen if you want to ask a question. I will be monitoring the Q&A. I'll also be monitoring the chat. I think Tina's probably already said hello to everybody, and so hasn't Mubashir. God, I hope I'm not chewing that name up too badly. And hello to everybody, and hello to everybody on LinkedIn Live too. We've already got a bunch of people on LinkedIn Live watching us as well. So that said, if you are on LinkedIn Live and you do want to ask a question, I will be monitoring LinkedIn Live as well. So if you have questions, I will transfer them over to the Zoom room and ask Tom. And from what I understand, there probably isn't a question he can't answer when it comes to call center as a service. So I'd love to get some real thick questions in there for you to answer him, to ask his questions and advice on. So that said, Tom, thanks so much for being with us today. I'm super excited to have you on and talk about this. This is one of the areas for me where, quite honestly, I'm shocked at the level of opportunity, and I don't get shocked too often, right? And for me, it was really fundamental for me to think about it a different way. And I can remember some of my early conversations. And Acliviti, for all of you that don't know, Acliviti is a permanent residence partner of Procurement Foundry. Thanks, Tom, for that, by the way. Really appreciate all of your support, you and Ryan and the rest of the team over at Acliviti, for all that you do for us at Procurement Foundry. I was shocked, quite honestly, and I had to think about it differently around call center as a service, because for me as a procurement person, it's typically all about, hey, I got a piece of software, I got to renegotiate a piece of software. And this is a completely different thing, which is why the topic for today's discussion really is around why outcome-based discovery has to come first before digital transformation. Like if you're just doing a demo, that isn't where you're going to see the value, right? So we're going to dive into all of that. But before we do that, let's do some introductions. Tom, thanks for being here today. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what your current role is, what your position is, what your background is, because I think everybody needs to hear that, and what your responsibilities are.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for having us. Always a pleasure to spend time with you. Tom Luther, Client Director with Acliviti, based here in Cincinnati. As you alluded to earlier, I've walked the walk, right? I've spent 15 years as a global contact center executive, kind of wing to wing, general management operations, P&L responsibility, biz dev. So I've seen the pains at all levels and successes at all levels. And most recently have spent time doing journey mapping for some very large global brands. And I've been with Acliviti, for the greater part of 6 months. Thrilled to be part of this firm because we are helping companies take this rather huge decision and making it very simple for them, right? And it starts with discovery and involving all elements of the operation. So thrilled to be here.
I love the word journey mapping, man. I think that is just sexy as hell. I love that. Journey mapping, discovery, value add. I love it. I'm writing. Did you see me pull out my notebook? I literally, when you said that, I'm like, oh, there's some jargon catch I gotta grab. Tell me a little bit. So I know you've been a practitioner before. Can you tell me a little bit about the size of the call centers that you've been involved with before as an operations guy? And just a little bit more on that would be great.
Yeah, sure. At my peak, I was responsible for roughly 4,000 FTE spread over 4 continents. Probably 12 to 13 different verticals at my peak. So companies come to us. Do you have experience in FinServ? Do you have experience in whatever realm we might be talking about, insurance, real estate, regardless of the industry, right? At the end of the day, they all have customers, and those customers need supported in the best way possible. So, certainly have the background to talk through all the journeys within those respective industries, and that, the depth and breadth I think that Acliviti offers from our perspective. We bring a lot of like-minded, talented professionals that can really address any and all industries that we come across, Mike.
Yeah, that's I know 4,000 call center people across, follow the sun mentality, right? So that the call center is never down. That in itself has an amazing amount of complexity to it. Time zones and culture limitation, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about where culture plays into this later on, because I know I got a couple questions for you about that. But that's just no small feat, man. I've never run a call center. The closest thing I ever ran to that was I ran an internal IT desk, support desk, with about 80 people, and I guess you could call that a call center or a contact center, but it was really internal. So you didn't have, you had employees calling, you didn't have, actual clients calling, right? So it was a little bit less stress or more stress depending upon, God forbid, but if the CEO's office called and you had tech support questions, it was stressful. So let's talk a little bit about Acliviti, right? Obviously this is a subject matter webinar and AMA event, but I want to talk a little bit about Acliviti really quickly, because what you do is really unique. I want to know, let's just set the stage a little bit for everybody just for the next, 60 minutes. What's your typical client engagement? Where does Acliviti play in the marketplace? Just so people get kind of understand the frame set that you're coming from.
Sure. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Acliviti is a Chicago-based advisory firm. I'll always throw out the most important word. We're an agnostic advisory firm, right? So we help, brands of all shapes and sizes make that very large, complex decision of jumping into the world of cloud transformation, omni-channel, whatever buzzword we want to use. We make it very simple through walking them through a very digestible process for their organization. We've been in business for 7 years. We've been one of the, 5,000 fastest growing companies in 19, 20, 21. But we really, to put it simply, we lead you through all 5 stages, right? Which is discovery, evaluation, selection, implementation, and post-implementation support of your cloud transformation journey, right? And everybody's talking about it. We need to move to the cloud. What is this thing around omnichannel? What does that mean? And oftentimes, right, the preface for today's conversation is they're moving way too fast, right? They're getting in. Let's talk to the major vendors in the upper right quadrant. Let's evaluate who's out there. Let's see products and demos. But hold on, right? We need to step back and talk about what's the plan. What's the plan? And Acliviti, simply put, will help you create the plan and lead you through the plan. Right, lead you through the thorny forest, as I like to say, right? In a way that you're going to come out and the outcomes that you promised to your C-suite and board are being fulfilled in a timely manner. So it's a big decision, but it's certainly not an easy one.
Yeah, some of these decisions, and listen, these are not things that go in and then you rip them out 6 months later. You know what I mean? The call centers are a very large, tend to be long-term decisions. And I love the fact that you said that Acliviti is an agnostic consultancy service, right? So for you, it's all about your client's journey as opposed to who they select as a product, right? But you're there for the whole process, which is, hey, we're going to help you do the discovery. We're going to help you build the business case. We're going to help you actually engage the vendor population based on what we find in the discovery stage. Then we'll help you through the negotiation and then deployment and execution, right? Which is interesting because most consultancy shops don't do that. Like if we think about the big 4, they come in, they do an analysis for you, they throw you a deck and they say, hey, this is good luck. And I've always seen that as a shortcoming because they don't have any skin in the game when it comes to actually delivering the service, whether you're a call center operations person or whether or not you're a procurement person who now has this multi-million-dollar, multi-year contract project on the table. You get a consultancy that comes in. Usually it's often given to you by senior leadership somewhere, either at the CPO level or at the head of operations level or the CFO level. And they come in and they put all this amazing stuff down, and then you've got to answer to that, whether or not it's fictional or non-fictional. That's the problem, right? So, I love the fact that what you guys do is you follow it through all the way through to deployment and then almost operationalization of it. So I really love the model there. By the way, let's set the stage a little bit on CCaaS, okay? Excuse me, sorry. I've heard 100 different definitions of CCaaS, right? There's a lot of confusion between UCaaS and CCaaS. You know, UCaaS is, in my opinion, UCaaS is Microsoft Team Interoffice. It's almost like the portal, the internal portal, right? Of your organization and the collaboration. But CCaaS is a completely different animal. So can you give me the Acliviti version? You guys are the experts in the space. Give me the definitive what the heck CCaaS actually is, so that we understand what it is and what it isn't.
Sure. I think simply put, it's contact center as a service for those not familiar with that acronym. And I emphasize that word contact, right? I think we rewind 10, 15 years, it was call center, right? And I think people look at call center as the only medium in which customers could interact with a brand. And all of us as consumers have realized that has evolved and matured greatly, right? Every brand out there is taking a healthy look at, how am I engaging with my customers? And they all need to be asking themselves a question, Mike, whether you're in procurement, whether you're in IT, technology, or operations. Are we meeting our customers where they want to be met? For us, this is the options that you have to call us, right? So the evolution from call to contact is very real, right? It's the whole theory behind omni-channel. The customer wants to text me at 2 a.m, they can. Customer wants to chat. Customer wants to engage on email. The customer wants to go to my website and look at a self-service knowledge base full of helpful tutorials, videos, etc. They can. It's about meeting them where they want to be met. That's how you drive the VOC. That's how you drive best in breed NPS. It's by giving them what they want, not what you think they want, right? So,
all right, you're dropping acronyms at me. You're dropping acronyms. So give me the extended versions of those, the MPS and the, what do you call it? The
VOC, voice of your customer, right?
Voice of your customer. Okay, great. I'm sorry. I want to make sure. I'm not in. I think the nugget for me there, amazingly, is and I look for these every time I have these sessions. I'm like, okay, I need to find 3 or 4 things that when I'm talking to people about this, and when people in the audience are listening to these things, these nuggets come out. And I don't know if you notice that you're doing it when you do it, but you said the CCaaS, it used to be call center as a service. Now it's contact as a service. And for me, that pretty much explains everything, right? It's like, if you're still thinking about this thing as a call center as a service, you're a dinosaur, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, you're on the path to extinction if you're still thinking in the way of call center as a service. Because for me, call center as a service is a big giant, AS400 with an Avaya switch in the back and routing, and I got to go into the AS400 and get my report out of my call, my people and how many calls they took today, and oh my God, I had an 8-hour shift and they had 31 calls, and the drop ratio started at 13 seconds, and all those things that used to happen in the call center, right? Now contact center to me is a whole different animal. And as a non-digital native, I'll call myself a digital tourist, right? And now that I'm 50, and I'm willing to admit that I'm 50 now. I'm not a digital native. I'm a digital tourist. But even in the digital tourist sense, I'm starting to see myself as operating a community. I'm in touch with a lot of different little software products that we're working on. Last night I was working on a referral software package, right? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm working with my web developers. I'm trying to find something to do. I'm trying to figure out how to get this thing live on my website. And I want to talk to somebody in customer support. and boom, I go to the webpage and I got a bot, and now I'm talking to somebody, and they're exactly what you're talking about. They're dropping me best practices, and hey, take a look at this, and here's 3 videos on YouTube to show you how the WordPress configuration is to drop this thing into your site. I mean, and that for me, I mean, it's 1:30 in the morning, man. You know, that's amazing to me that we're there. So for me, I think the number one nugget that I have is you got to think of it as a contact center, not a call center. And thank you for that. I really appreciate it. That kind of sets the backdrop. So let's, and I think that's a lead into the next question that I have, which is, there's a lot of people with a lot of problems on this thing, right? There's a lot of inefficiencies associated with cost, people, process, and technology. What exactly is the problem here? What we're here to talk about outcome-based discovery in transformational projects. It seems pretty straightforward to me, based on the fact that, okay, I want to create an outcome, so I do this, but not everybody does it that way. What's the problem? How big is the problem? And how is this all getting messed up? How's it getting lost in the translation, in your opinion?
Well, I think if you really look at it at the grassroots level, I mean, if we're here specifically talking to a lot of procurement leaders, I mean, the intentions are always pure. We want to try to provide our associates with the best tools and technology to support the customers. Their intentions are always pure. What I'm finding is that they're not reaching out to their counterparts in operations, technology, IT. I mean, there's just not enough inter-office communication around where are we really headed with our vision and capabilities for our customers the next 24, 36, 4 or 5 years, right? However long we want to look. Often when we're talking to organizations, that's the number one question I ask is, have you guys actually met as a team to talk through your future experience? Right? Because you want to ultimately provide the best in class tools for not only your external customer, but your internal customer. So I always bring it back, Mike, to this operational readiness component, right? And 99% of the time when we're talking to brands, the first question I ask is, have you guys actually met and talked as leaders across business units around where is this headed, right? How are we going to impact, how is this going to impact our people, our customers, and our internal customers that are supporting those customers, right?
Yep.
How does this improve our efficiencies from a process perspective? What are the business outcomes as it pertains to, are we trying to save money? Are we trying to grow a revenue stream? Are we trying to improve our voice of the customer, improve our NPS? Are we trying to offer concurrent work streams, chat, text, voice, all simultaneously for Mike, the contact center associate, so Mike doesn't get burnt out and leave, right, in a contact center? So you can take these discussions in many different realms, but it all comes back to, is there operational readiness? And I would tell you that operations is looking for that olive branch from procurement when we're talking about this, versus just let's go look at the top in the right quadrant. There's a lot of wonderful CCaaS providers, Mike, out there.
Yeah.
But that's step 2. Step 1 is, let's look through and talk through your vision, capabilities, and your current operation. Understand where we're headed, what's it costing us today, before we understand where we're going to go.
That's some pretty powerful stuff, man. I think most procurement and sourcing people, even the good ones, and I don't know, maybe the attendees can chime in on the chat here and tell me I'm full of crap or not, but I think most of the good procurement people are really thinking about this from a 3 to 5, maybe 7-year software or professional services outsourcing engagement, right, or agreement, and they're not necessarily elevating up to, hey, I need to think about what is, or be a part of a team that is thinking about a 10 to 20 year customer experience roadmap. And listen, that's a little pie in the sky. I'm going to admit it, right? I mean, listen, we're speaking from a practitioner or procurement perspective, we're in the grind, man. It's like, hey, I got given this project. Most of the time I get brought in at the last minute, right? I gotta, I'm the dull blunt instrument that's supposed to get this vendor down to, X budget restraint. But to be thinking about it from a 10 to 20 year experience and being part of that, procurement people and so strategic sourcing people as a whole we struggle with the fact that we're stuck in tactical day to day, or our persona is that we're stuck in tactical day to day. This really is an interesting way of potentially going strategic and going much further up the food chain when you start talking about what is the 10 to 20 year customer experience that we're looking for before we even start to engage in that front. Let's design the future of our customer experience and then go find somebody that we can partner with to take it down that path, right?
Exactly right.
So that's pretty big from, I think, where probably the majority of the market is today, even still, based on the fact that, you know, there's a movement afoot. The next generation's pushing the technology really quickly. The millenniums are pushing the technology really quickly. I got an 18-year-old son that I don't think has ever called a call center. I don't know how he gets in touch with these people, but it's either, you know, it's either through chat or through text or through a number of different things. But I don't think he actually, his cell phone plan, my 18-year-old son doesn't use cellular, which I think is amazing. He uses all data, 100% of what he uses data. So if that's how he's engaging to, whether it's his PlayStation or his electric guitar amp, or how the heck do I get through Syracuse University, it's all done via data, not through cell phone calls. So that's interesting. Quick, we got a first question inside of the team, and it's inside of the room, and it's timely, so I want to ask it. Many terms, and I know you touched on this a little bit. Maybe you can extrapolate out on it a little bit more. Many terms are thrown around CCaaS. How do you differentiate? Excuse me. How do you differentiate between omni-channel and multi-channel?
Well, I think they're very much synonymous. I mean, when you talk about omni-channel, right, versus multi-channel, I mean, omni is, you know, meeting the customer at every angle that they want to be met, Mike. Right. So I think multi-channel could be, in terms of contact center, historically, people would say multi, which means more than one, right? It would mean we're cutting edge. Besides voice, we're offering email now, or maybe some light chat that's maybe not that mature. And people thought they were ahead of the curve. Well, I think today's consumer, right, is looking for omni, right, which is certainly greater than multi, in that every avenue right now possible, people are interacting with the brands, right? So if you think through just the spirit of this conversation, you're interacting with people across many different brands, from a voice perspective, non-voice with chat, with text, with social, right? These creations of landing pages with self-service documents, video collateral, video with demonstration on how to use the product. So when we talk about omni, the concept of many, right? There's not a brand path right now that you can't interact with. To me, that is meeting the customer where they want to be met, and not just what I'll call a fairly vanilla strategy of maybe voice and email, which candidly, 2/3 of the brands out there, that's still how they're engaging. So the market is certainly ripe to address more omni focus, because that's, to your point a moment ago, Mike. I have a daughter of that age too. She will never call a call center. She wants to do chat, text, the whole 9 yards. If she is, you know, engaging with a beauty brand at 12 at night, she expects that on Facebook she gets to reply within 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Or guess what? She's going to go buy something else next month. And that's when you know you're surrounding your people with customer care, right? You're surrounding your customer at all times with real-time responses. That's the peak of customer journey, right? When you're getting back to them instantaneous with their needs, regardless how big, small, and you get that via omni, not necessarily multi.
Yeah, for me, I think of it as, and I'm sure this is a hyper extension of that, but I'm sorry, how old did you say she was?
She'll be 20.
She'll be 20. Okay. So I got an 18, you got a 19. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm having a problem with eyeliner. I want to get onto the website of the company whose eyeliner I bought. I want to talk to a bot who then drives me to a real-time person that shows me how to put this eyeliner on, because I'm going clubbing in 30 minutes. And if it's not right, I'm never buying it again.
That's right.
And you're dead in the water. Your brand's dead because, right. And we're gonna talk about that a little bit more, about how valuable this is. But I mean, that's the nightmare. That is this one time. It's got to be done right, and it's going to be, or else you only get one chance to fail in this day and age, right?
That's right.
With customer experience. You made a comment there, 2/3 of brands are still engaging the old way.
Mhm.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, so plenty of studies will show, right, that only a third of brands are actually involved in the cloud, right? If we talk about cloud-based telephony, omni-channel type solution, right? And if you look at across those brands, you'll see an immediate spike, right, around voice of customer and net promoter scores based on the fact that they're offering omni-channel solutions to their customer, right? They've listened. Whether they did voice surveys over the phone or they actually held in-person focus groups, they actually listen to their customer. How do you want to engage with our brands? And that's also a major point of contention, Mike, is not enough brands are asking the question, how can we be better? Right? Where can we be better? Right? Because at the end of the day, it's not about staying the same. It's about improving the experience and the touch points. So it's quite shocking because if you think about it, it's fairly daunting, right? We're talking about moving from an on-premise solution, right, that's fairly antiquated in nature to a cloud-based. People think cloud, oh, what does that mean? I'm scared of that word. And sometimes, again, it gets back to building that plan, helping brands understand, right, that this is a real foolproof thing with plenty of security, plenty of reliability, and all the ability to offer you and your customers more channels to interact with the brand. A lot of people are afraid of it still, though. Right? Even though it will save them millions, it will improve all of their customer experience scores. It will help drive interactions, both in the internal and external customer, and make ease of use easier. And companies like Acliviti, right? We step up and help them understand this doesn't have to be a big, scary journey, right? Let us help you make this decision. And part of it being 1/3, and this market's going to be white hot, Mike, the next 5 years. White hot as people get more comfortable and see that their competition is doing it and how they're losing customers from a churn perspective to other like brands. I think that'll start moving the earth pretty quick on that.
Yeah, so I want to put a pin in that because there's a point at the end of this where we talk about a little bit of innovation and what you're seeing and kind of like, okay, talk to me about the promised land, right? And I want to know who's doing it well. If there's some niche markets that are doing really exceptional work, typically in these arenas, it tends to be the gaming industry or consumer packaged goods to 12 to 18-year-olds who have to stay at the speed of light, things like that. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I do have a question around, I mean, okay, so there's a problem. We know there's a problem, right? How big is this problem? How much operational waste is out there with the old systems, the overstaffed organizations, the massive call centers that still have DID lines in them? How much potential upside on upside bottom line revenue is not being collected due to lack of evolution in customer experience centers or contact centers? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how much operational waste there is. So how much is the P&L heavy versus what it should be? And then let's also talk about what's the potential upside. So what's the revenue, bottom line revenue, that is being missed by not doing this the right way? I'm not looking for a specific example. I just kind of want to get an idea of how big is this issue.
I think it's huge. And I'll specifically, when we talk about operations, I'll always look at, again, my background, right? Leading contact centers, I always come back to the people, right? So often we think about the external customer, which is extremely important, but I always like to look and bring it back inside, Mike. Who are the people that are handling your most precious resource? Your customer service representatives, right? They're feeling the pain of having antiquated technology. And what do I mean by that, Mike? Mike, you said it's a thankless job. You're getting pounded all day with phone calls. There is no chat. There is no text. I'm not managing a social media queue, right? The burnout in call centers, guys, is a real thing right now, right? And it doesn't matter your brand. You're typically occupied 85, 90% of your day. And what is that going to eventually lead to, Mike? It's going to lead to you being a little grouchy on the phone. It's going to lead to your unhappiness with the job, poor service to the customer. Eventually, Mike's going to go down the road to his next job.
What's the life expectancy of a contact center person right now, right? Because listen, I've operated an internal call center like I talked about with IT. My wife is actually involved in a consumer packaged good, high-end luxury brand call center as well. And there's a huge percentage of the market that's inbound contact that is just people that have a problem. And because of that, they're naturally not happy, right? Like nobody calls a call center to go, hey man, I just turned on my Weber grill and the thing is killing it. I just wanted to tell you how happy I am. My ribeyes were fantastic tonight. You guys are doing great. You should probably charge another $100 for your grill, right? Everybody calls because one burner's lit, the knob fell off. Holy crap! I had a cookout this weekend, and one of the kids burned their hand, or something's wrong, right? So, what's the average life expectancy right now? And I guess my bigger question is can something like this, like can procurement and sourcing actually help through this process of a discovery as opposed to a demo world, expand the life expectancy of call center people?
Absolutely. Right. To answer your first question, it's about 2.5 to 3 years. And I would tell you from my experience, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Studies will tell you 2.5 to 3 years. Most of the time I found if you can get past 18 months, year and a half, you're doing pretty well. The cost to replace an associate in North America is about $3,500, right? When you factor in all the costs associated with the recruiting process, the marketing process, the hiring process, the unpaid time, right? Or their not ability to generate revenue, they're just going through the motions, about $3,500. And I think to be a little more specific, your average in-house contact center, Mike, is right around 50% annualized attrition. When you start getting into the outsourcing world, you get into the 100 range.
50% annual attrition?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And brands that, and I'll be honest, real honest, I think brands that tell you they're doing less than that, very few of them are probably doing it the right way, right? They may be just moving person from here to there, but at the end of the day, if we're looking at pure in the job, out of the job attrition, you're looking at about 4% a month.
This is voluntary attrition.
Yeah. Well, voluntary and involuntary, whether they were a fit or not a fit. But back to your thought on how can procurement help? It's the same, I think, talk track we've been on today. Procurement and operations have to be arm in arm a lot more than they are today. Mm-hmm. Right? At the end of the day, you guys have the right intentions. You're trying to put the best product at the right price at head of operations. It's wonderful, right? But how often are we asking, what's going on in the call center? Where are we thriving? Where are we diving, right? Where are we struggling, right? And at the end of the day, if we're looking at it from an internal associate perspective, by providing them an omni-channel experience, you're now going to allow Mike to have a breather during the day. He's not just getting pummeled with phone calls. He's able to take a respite for a minute and handle a chat or two, handle a text, handle a social media reaction, right? So that whole idea of concurrent work streams will allow for less burnout and less churn, right? And we talked about some of the external benefits of Omni throughout this call. So, at the end of the day, and then we can probably have a whole seminar someday on RPA, right? Robotic process automation, right? For folks that want to get leaner and meaner, right? That's the spirit of call center, right? How do we have the leanest operation possible, providing the best data outputs back to product sales and marketing at the best margin with the best voice of customer scores? If you're really looking at the top four areas, at the end of the day, the procurement should be thinking about as it pertains to their operational counterparts, it's around those areas.
Yeah. Let's talk about the revenue side of it, because we had two conversations about this before we actually had this event today. And both times I walked away kind of with an aha moment where I don't really think of call centers as revenue generation in two ways. Number one is upselling of other goods and services that go with the product that you're calling in or the service that you're calling in about, but also just client retention, right? Like we talked about with the example with your daughter, if they don't get her somebody live who could show her how to put the mascara on, she's gone. You've lost all future potential revenue to her because she just doesn't like the brand because she couldn't find a YouTube video that showed her how to glam up before she went out, right?
That's right.
So there's a massive, the operation side is one thing, right? Okay, I can optimize this, I can omni-channel this, I can optimize, not only can I reduce the work staff because I've got robotic process and some other omni-channel, but I can also extend that life cycle of those people, which then makes them 24 to 36 months. All great things that any operations manager is looking for. But then the revenue side of it for me is fertile ground, right? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I can. Yeah, I'll start with people look at call center, and if we're all being honest,
Contact center.
they look at contact center as
Yep.
a cost center, a drain on the P&L, right? It's kind of the lowest common denominator. When in turn, if we're being honest, they handle your most valuable asset, the customer, right? And the investment and attention to detail must reflect a proper understanding of that value, right? And by offering omni-channel, right, and getting a true voice of the customer process through your technology, those folks, those men and women, and the data that they capture every day is so invaluable, right? But there's not typically a clearly defined roadmap of that data back to groups in marketing, product, sales, future cross-selling functions. Where do you have a better data repository than the men and women that are talking to your folks every day, right? So we talk about revenue generation and getting that valuable information. That is a huge misstep most companies are not focused on today. They don't have a VOC process in general, let alone listening to the men and women. I've always said they're the most valuable resource the organization has, because they're the last point of contact, potentially, with your brand that customer may ever have. So you need to arm them with the tools necessary to do their job.
Yeah, I think and it could be something as simple as, hey, listen, really sorry about the experience. By the way, it's really unpublished, but there's a discount program that's coming in place if you're a handbag client, and we're in a high-end handbag call center, contact center. You might not be aware of this, but we've got a 20% discount on accessories coming up, just in case the holidays are coming up. And I want to make sure you're not wasting your own money in the holidays, like something like that, even something like that. Hey, by the way, let me send you on the email that I'm going to send you about the closing. We'll take a look at the 20% discount code on the bottom, right? Because I know the holidays are coming up and you just told me you're thinking about gift giving, something like that, right? I mean, just that little nuanced touch point there at the end makes that person feel like, okay, this experience has been designed for me. Somebody was amazingly helpful to me. They actually are trying to help me save money, right? All of those little psychological ticks that because, like you said, they're handling. This is they're the first line of defense. It's almost better than a retail shop, right? Because you're getting them, like people coming in retail, like I shop in retail and I'm like I go to Dick's Sporting Goods and I'll spend 3.5 hours in the fishing section, right? And somebody comes over and they want to talk to me and I'm like, no, I know what I want. I'm good. Don't worry about it. I know I'm going to spend 3 hours here, but I'm oogling, right? But then I want to get on the phone with Penn Reels and talk about how to put the right oil on my reel, things like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, where's the blog that shows where's the community that goes with Penn Reels, things like that. So it rings completely true to me, regardless of what the age bracket is. Quick comment from on LinkedIn. Chris Talbot says, if you do strategic sourcing versus procurement, you have to work up the value stream and both understand and influence strategy. Amen to that, brother. If you're not working up and you don't understand and influence the strategy, I mean, that's what this is all about, right? I mean, the topic of this discussion today is, are you bogged down in demos when you should be doing discovery, right? And that's it. So I mean, we're specifically talking about call center as a service, but ultimately, if you're a procurement or a supply chain person and your call center operations or your finance or your customer support organization is coming to you and saying, hey, we need to go out to the Gartner Magic Quadrant, go up to the upper right-hand quadrant and start booking meetings with people. You're like, whoa, what do we, I mean, tap the brakes. I want to talk a lot about that. That's a 3 to 5 year strategy. When I want to talk about, what I'm hearing in the marketplace, which is strategic sourcing and procurement is bringing value to the table through a 10-year customer engagement engineering process associated with where we want to be as a company in that space. So great stuff. Absolutely great stuff. I want to jump into my next question here because I know we didn't put a number on it, but I think the lost revenue opportunity with call centers versus contact center is massive, right? I mean, just the fact that in a contact center, if somebody's talking to you on a bot or a chat or something like that, you can always throw up a, hey, by the way, we just looked up your records and these are the types of things you buy. You might want to look at this in the future, right? That little touch at the end, right? So just that alone is massive. So let's talk about that outcome-based discovery project. So we know there's a need. Your call center team calls, says, hey, we need you to go negotiate for us, find a new solution. How do you reframe this up so that you're not the guy holding up the process and you're the inhibitor of the process? And how do you guide clients so that they're not coming off as confrontational, I guess?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we've talked about it a little bit, but I think we'll always bring it back to the fact that we have to start by establishing the discovery of the vision and roadmap. And we talked about 15 to 20 years. I think that's unrealistic. What does the next 5 years look like for our brand, right? And bringing together all of the business unit champions throughout a workshop of some sort, right? To talk through where are we headed as an organization and are we aligned? Once we have that double thumbs up from everyone in the room, then let's begin talking about what is the current operation really costing you today, Mike? Because I will tell you, finding that I find a lot, and we find a lot at Acliviti, is that the current state of ownership, the current operation is not being tracked properly, right? So we need to be able to establish down to the red cent, what is the current operation and all that entails costing your organization today? So when you couple that discovery blueprint with the true current state total cost of ownership versus future state with anyone in the top quadrant, you start feeling a lot more confident to walk down the hall and talk to the C-suite about why we need to do this. And the whole concept of today, the demo overload of bringing us in, normally we're being brought in, whether it be at the brand level or we're being brought in at the vendor level these days, is because companies have hit this impasse. The guy in customer care doesn't agree with the person in product. They don't agree over here with the person in collections. Our risk strategy thinks differently. Procurement's over here with this opinion, right? And then trying to get through that labyrinth can be confusing. Yeah. So part of the thing that we like to do at Acliviti is, before we do anything, let's get everyone in the room. Let's get it all out on the table. Let's lay out where do we believe we're headed, and do we fully agree of where our discovery roadmap is going to head the next 3 to 5 years. Yeah. And once you get that clarity and get it out there, Mike, then you can start putting the financials together and really understand the true massive benefit that lies ahead for your organization.
I'm interested in doing this. I do this a lot. I want to do an instant poll while we have everybody here. So if you're inside of the Zoom room right now, if you're one of the attendees in the Zoom room, just go into the chat and give me a number on 1 through 5. Tom made a really good point, which is actually understanding what your total cost of ownership is associated with your call or contact center right now. And I think what you mean by that, Tom, is, okay, this is how much the software costs, this is how much the facility costs, this is how much the payroll costs, this is how much the lost revenue opportunity is, this is how much the fax machines cost, because we take faxes in, God forbid you take carrier pigeons or smoke signal, whatever, however you get, what you get, right? I'm interested to know how many people inside of the room, and even on LinkedIn, because we've got a bunch of people on LinkedIn as well, on a scale of 1 to 5, how well do you know what your TCO is associated with your call center and your contact center is? 1 being, I don't even know what TCO is, total cost of ownership, and all I'm looking at is the cost of the software. And 5 is, yeah, we've got that all broken down into logical dashboard cubing and everything's great. So just as we continue to talk, if you could just spin up some numbers for me in the chat and on LinkedIn, I'd really appreciate just seeing where you are, because I want to get a feel for where the audience is in their own estimation of maturity model against understanding the TCO. Because I think that's fundamental here when you start to take a procurement organization, you take them from a tactical level and you turn them into a strategic level, which is, hey, you're talking to me about buying a $10 million piece of software versus $100 million department which were going to potentially optimize costs associated with labor by 25%. And now I got $25 million a year for 5 years. I got $125 million gain share on labor because we're optimizing this. Do I really care about the $10 million in software when I'm optimizing? You know, like when you walk into your CFO's office and you start to do this, all of a sudden you're the really smart guy in the room who took the time to do a TCO analysis of what started off as, hey, I need you to go buy me some new software.
Right.
Is that really, that's it, right? I mean, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, if you've ever sold anything to a C-suite, you want to be overly prepped. And I think that when you have a current state TCO analysis versus a future state analysis, the savings could be a big deal. And again, it's not just selling the savings, right? I think it's very important that we fast forward to the post-implementation. Who's going to now go and ensure that the outcomes, timelines, and deliverables are on track?
Right.
And candidly, to the procurement team and others on the phone, it's not going to be the vendor you select. They're going to arm you with some great resources, but they kind of focus to stay in their sandbox as it pertains to supporting this new technology that they bought. Majority of the time, that's where the rubber hits the road, right? The CEO goes to the board and says, "Good news, we've gone live, and we're launching chat, text, and social media over the next year. We're on pace, team, to see, you know, these efficiencies, less headcount, improved VOC, whatever the storyline, right?" But it's not just selling the business case; it's being able to follow through on the outcomes too, right? And that's where.
Yeah, tons of people don't do that, right? The IT organizations of the world are infamous for never following up on the TCO calculation on, hey, we're going to go to, I mean, the most famous one in the world is we're going to go to cloud and we're going to save sorry, I almost said it. We're going to save a ton of money off of the data centers, right? And then you get to, you know, the 3-letter acronym cloud providers, or even some of the other bigs, and you go, okay, our data center was about $7 million a year and our cloud bill is about $13 million a year. I thought we were going to save money. What the heck's going on here, right? It's because of mismanagement of the cloud and a whole bunch of other things, but you get the point, which is nobody ever comes back and, you know, puts the fire to the iron on the chief information officer who said that, because on an 18-month circular cycle, 24-month circular cycle, most of the time that guy's gone or that woman's gone before that TCO ever has to get evaluated. So somebody else is stuck picking up a bag of tricks that somebody else deployed on a what I'll call a bad discovery exercise that didn't take place, right?
Yeah, and one further point on that, Mike, would be, I mean, we have a lot of brands and vendors coming to us right now saying we're stuck, right? Because we didn't do the proper discovery up front, ensuring that all of our business counterparts are on the same page with where we're headed. And when you provide that clarity around where are we headed the next 3 to 5 years, and you complement and supplement that with a really nice financial tight blueprint, it's amazing the level of confidence across the organization that allows this process to go a lot more seamlessly than it is. So when somebody comes to you and says, so that's going to lead to my next question, which is who's calling you advice and support, and what's your typical engagement model with a client look like? I guess my question is who's calling you, telling you that they're stuck, and are they really stuck, or is it, hey, you just haven't looked at it this way? The good news is you kind of might have bought the right thing. We got to augment it with some of these other things, but at the end of the day, we got to step back for a minute. So are you really stuck, or are you just not thinking about it the right way? I think it could be both. I think when we talk about our normal engagement, I mean, we interact with customers really, I would say, 2 ways. Yep. Right? It could be a true greenfield operation. Brand A has not engaged with anyone yet. They know this is daunting. They know this is scary. They have the foresight to say, we need help from a consulting firm like Acliviti that does this for a living, that will help us cradle to grave, make the right decisions. That's the dream situation. The situation that hits us more often than not is they felt some pain. Attrition's been poor. Voice of customer scores have came back down for the 3rd year in a row. The operation's getting too costly, right? The output of the contact center, the customer experience is not where it needs to be. okay, we need to become one of the 1/3 of companies that have joined this thing called the cloud, right? And we know we need an omni strategy. What naturally is happening, Mike, and why we're here today is that they're normally just looking onto the Gartner quadrant and saying, let's go set up demo with these top 5 companies.
Yeah.
And truth is, they're all wonderful companies with wonderful offerings that will help every one of those companies. But what are they going to do? Product and feature and product and feature and product and feature, when they should be talking about pains and challenges and true consultative selling, right? And even those people who are more adept at that still are trying to sell them a product. Like, we're trying to help the experience internal. I don't care who you choose at the end of the day. I'm going to help you make the right decision for you as the client. But we're going to give you that agnostic truth and help you walk through that process, wing to wing. And people just get in a hurry. Everybody wants to be the hero, right? And say, we went and led this through with X brand, X vendor. But the truth is, was it the right decision? Because we equally walk into a lot of what we call clean up on aisle 5s, Mike, where we're bad implementations, bad implementations, wrong strategy, wrong technology. And now we're kind of saying, wow, how do we fix this thing?
Data center row number 7 has a lot of spills in it. I get it.
Yeah, it's a lot of pain, a lot of costs.
I think the interesting part here is that when you talk about call centers, and contact centers as a whole, these don't tend to be really small operations. I mean, even the 250, 500 person shops are big at a total cost of ownership. And I think that we tend to rush into, okay, I got a project, I need to get it done, and I need to move it off my plate, and I need to move on to the next project. You don't have to rush through this thing, right? That's the whole point. The point is that there's so much money associated with the operations and the labor costs and the lost revenue opportunities and all these other things, that for you to take 6, 8, 9 months and really think this through and take your time, don't try and jam this thing in 3 or 4 months because, oh my God, my call center software is coming up for renewal in 90 days. What do I do now? Right? Which actually will lead me to a great point, which is a great question, which is, I just said I'm going to ask myself a great question. I'm sorry. It might be a horrible question. I don't know. But in general, from a best practices perspective, when somebody is looking at a 1,000 to 4,000 person call center digital transformation project, how far out do they need to start the discovery and analysis process to basically be successful, in your opinion, be successful?
My opinion, I think the healthy recommendation would be a year, right? So for people that are thinking about doing it in 2022, we need to start planning for it the second half of this year and first quarter of next year, right? If we're talking about the July timeframe, right? We follow what we call an Apex methodology, and each one of those steps, we recommend taking a solid month, right? Again, this is a multi-million-dollar big decision that requires a lot of input, a lot of teamwork, a lot of financial modeling, a lot of interviewing, a lot of questionnaires to these vendors. Let's do it right the first time. Let's take our time, and you'll see the benefits that you envision when you start talking about cloud transformation. Yeah, companies that get in trouble. Yeah.
There's got to be 2 months of internal investigation to begin with, just to get the stakeholders in a room. What is the CFO expectation from this? What is the head of operations expectation from this? God forbid you get multinational operations. What does the guy in India want versus the guy in Canada versus the guy in Costa Rica versus the guy in Germany, right?
100%.
And if you have an operation in the Midwest, God bless you, in the Midwest as well, right? But in some cases, they run pseudo independently. You got to get all the cooks to agree on what type of soup you're cooking, right? Before you go down that path. Sushil, I'm sorry, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Sushil Online says, what are the win-win negotiation techniques? I'll go back to you with a question against your question, Sushil, which is, are you talking about win-win negotiation techniques in discussing with stakeholders, or are you talking about win-win associated with the actual vendor population? Because the vendor population win-win negotiation techniques, we could have a whole nother show on just that, right? So somebody said supplier. So we only got 4 or 5 minutes left. Just really quickly, Tom, I'm imagining that the win-win scenario is you don't try and do this yourself. I mean, I don't want to prop you up and give you a 2-inch putt here, but this is not something that somebody typically has an expertise inside of your organization on, because you buy one of these things every 5 to 10 years, right?
Yeah.
That is the whole reason to go out to a third party, be it Acliviti or someone else, because of the market subject matter expertise associated with the fact that they're engaging with these companies all the time, and they already understand what that company needs as a victory lap in order to consolidate and get you in. The win on your side is getting the right product at the right price that is deployable and isn't going to be shelfware and scrapped as a $10-15 million nightmare project that somebody's going to get walked out the door on. Am I there?
Well said. That's well said. And you stole kind of, a little bit of what I was going to leave you with. And it's never go alone, right? This decision is far too important for your internal operation, your external customer, to do it in a rushed way and do it the wrong way. Whether it's Acliviti or someone else, every brand needs to bring in someone that's done this for a living, ran contact centers, understands the customer journey, right? To help them understand where are they headed as an organization. We're not going to try to change your decisions on your strategy. We're going to help guide you through making sure that everyone's calibrated on where you think they need to go and then align you with the right technology. But this is not a small decision, right? So don't try to rush it through and jam it through to say we got it done in 2021. We'll certainly help you. If you tell me you need to get done in 3 months, we'll help you get done in 3 months. But along the way, we're going to offer a lot of caution that we should do this right and do it the right way. So you're going to walk away with one thing today. It's the customer service representatives are handling your precious treasure, the customer. And when you're making decisions around cloud-based discovery, don't do it alone.
Yeah. The other question is how to negotiate with a supplier to get good price as well as quality. You can talk to Tom about that offline. Acliviti has a channel inside of the Procurement Foundry. That's probably a much longer conversation around what your specific needs are, because suppliers have different needs at different times, whether that's geo, whether that's cost basis at the end of the year, whether that's certain modules that are coming out, things like that. There's tons of different strategies there. We got 4 minutes left, Tom. Two questions I want to ask you, because I know you were talking to me about it. So let's talk about I want to talk about imagining the possibilities. What are you seeing in technology right now as far as these solutions go that's melting your face off? What are you like, holy cow, wow, this is really exciting? And then I want to just wrap up with, what is probably one of your big takeaways for people today?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of great things that are, I think, melting the industry's face off. I would tell you, maybe approach this from a different perspective in that what's not going away. People, I think, need to understand that AI and chatbots are real and they're getting better every month, every year, right? They're becoming more intuitive than ever. When you think through the journey, things like how do I make my operation more lean, RPA, robotic process automation, for those not familiar, you could really improve the efficiencies of your organization by losing and leaning down on your costs by implementing robotic process. And people wouldn't know the difference these days. I mean, these are, very intuitive that will help operations maintain and grow their voice of customer in the overall experience through robots, right? And some of the processes associated with automation. Those things aren't going away. Omnichannel's not going away, right? People aren't all of a sudden going to say, I demand that this brand offers voice and voice only. Voice will always be there. It will always be there forever and always, in my opinion. But these other channels are coming on strong. It's important that each company has a well-balanced strategy for customers of all styles.
So it's much more what I use the Excel theory to life, which is, hey, listen, man, a lot of this stuff is really powerful and really good and is already capable of melting your face off. You're just using 3% of it, right? If you could actually deploy and use 70% of Excel, you'd realize that Excel is the killer financial app. You just got to go learn 75% of it. And the same thing is true of some of these call center and RPA integrations and things like that are out there. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I think RPA is, and I'm sure the percentage of people who are deploying RPA right now is minuscule, because 66% of the marketplace is still thinking of this as a call center as opposed to a contact center. So that said, what's the one takeaway, because we're almost at time, what's the one takeaway you want to leave everybody with here today, Tom, if you can?
I would say reach out and talk, right? The cost of a conversation is free, right? If you're thinking about moving to the cloud, you're thinking about this concept of Omni, how do I improve experience? Our team at Acliviti is well-versed, right? We've been in the fires, we've done the job. We're happy to talk with you about that approach. Whether or not it leads to an engagement is irrelevant, right? We want to make sure that we're fostering the message out to the community of never going alone. Don't do this alone. It's going to cost your organization a lot more money if you do it incorrectly, right? So whether you choose us or someone else, allow us to help you through the discovery process. You can take your brands to new heights.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I think for me, stop thinking of it as a call center, think of it as a contact center. Think of it as a revenue generator as opposed to a cost center, right? And don't go this thing alone. Leverage the expertise that's out there, because this is when you start thinking about TCO, this is a much bigger item than the actual software that you're going to go out and buy off of the Magic Quadrant. There's too many potential value propositions in there for you not to think of it that way. Tom, absolutely amazing. I want to let people know again, Acliviti is a permanent residence of Procurement Foundry. They're with us all the time. They're at our conferences. They've got a channel inside of the Procurement Foundry as well, if you want to reach out and talk to the team there. And you can also reach out to them on their LinkedIn. Tom's information will be tagged inside of this post today as well. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to him. Like I said, Tom's he's very much like the rest of us. He's actually a practitioner who is now helping others. So that's kind of what we do in Procurement Foundry as well, with his couple decades of experience. Tom, thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it. It was enlightening for me. The whole discussion around TCO for me just kind of blows it makes this tenfold. It's like, this is almost a no-brainer. Okay, now I get it. So thanks for that. Really appreciate it. And thanks for your time. And I'm sure we'll talk to you again sometime soon. And appreciate all the knowledge you're throwing at us today.
No, appreciate you having me, Mike. Thank you.
All right, everybody. That's it for now. I don't know if I got into everybody's answers, but if I didn't get into your answers, ping these guys. They know what they're talking about. I don't need to tell you any more than that. Okay. I will talk to you again soon. Thank you all for coming. Thanks for the folks on LinkedIn. Thanks for the people that were inside of the room today. Really appreciate it. Everybody have a great day, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.